W220 here for some service. I have a slew of parts that are going to be going on the car. VRP split cooling setup, a new dipstick for the ABC reservoir. I got a catch can. The entire ignition system is going to get redone. New wires, new plugs, new coil packs. I picked up some breather hoses, new valve cover gaskets, some Mercedes-Benz sealant, a new crank position sensor while I'm in there. Replace that. I have a couple pulsation dampeners and air cells, or reservoirs as Mercedes calls them, for the ABC suspension, along with 2 accumulators that are going to be going in. So the entire ABC system is going to get refreshed. An 83 millimeter supercharger pulley with a new belt. I picked up some 550cc Bosch injectors, which are going to go in once I install the pulley, along with a tune. And then just some oil for an oil change filter, new drain plug, crush washer. And then I also picked up some liquid moly engine flush, and then we're going to hit it with some engine treatment just as a little bit of added protection. So that's basically an overrun of everything that's getting done on the car. Today I just want to focus on taking some of the under panels off. I'm going to be replacing one of the air cells and the pulsation dampener, and I'm actually waiting for the other 2 accumulators to come in. These came in first, so I figured get the car jacked up and at least get the process started. So that's what's going on with the S-Class, and I'm going to try to hammer this out and get some work done today on the ABC suspension. So I'll try to walk through some of the steps that it takes that requires taking off the pulsation dampener and the air cell, and I'll just report back as I go. So that's the game plan. Talk to you soon. All right, so I took off the under panel tray that runs the whole length of the car, and then you're gonna have a hard plastic cover that covers up this entire area. The fuel pump, the filter, and then one of the valve blocks. This is on the driver's side rear. This is one of the accumulators, the smaller ones, that's gonna get replaced, that's tied into the system. So this is, if you look on the box, the part number is 220-320-0415. So this is considered a self-leveling suspension accumulator. Make sure when you take this panel off, grab some brake clean and some clean paper towels and clean this entire area, because what you're going to do is you're going to remove these 2 lines, and the last thing you want is to get any kind of dirt or debris inside the system and mixed with the hydraulic fluid, because it's just going to cause problems. So grab some paper towels, grab some brake clean, take your time, clean all the crap out from around the lines, around the connections. And then it looks like it's pretty simple. So you're going to have 2 lines that go in, and then 2 bolts. There's one up top, and then there's one on the end, where if you look on this accumulator, you got one up top, and then one on this little valve block itself here, and then you have 2 lines going in. So that's basically the procedure. I'm going to start disassembling this, and I will report back. But like I said, just make sure the area is nice and clean. Take that cover off, wash the cover, clean the cover up. I had this line blow not too long ago, and there was just hydraulic fluid all over the place. So I made sure that I cleaned up everything really well, and I'm going to start disassembling this valve block. So I'll report back. All right, so I got the old one out, the new one is in. A couple things I would make a note of is this nut here. It's actually a bolt, and there's a nut on the end. I would keep those on until you break these lines free, just so you have a little bit more leverage. You don't want to take the bolts off and then be cranking on these lines. You're going to bend the bracket and everything else. So leave this bolted up, break the lines free. Once they break free, you can spin these out by hand. you should be able to anyway. I mean, this car is pretty clean. It doesn't have any rust on it, so the lines were extremely easy to take out and put back in. I could pretty much put every line back in finger tight, and then just take an 11/16 line wrench and tighten them up, just about like a quarter turn, I would say, but they're tight. So this is in and new. The lines are all tightened back up. I took some more brake clean and just went through. I didn't soak it. I just kind of hit it a little bit, took some of the fluid off, cleaned everything up really well. You're not going to lose a ton of fluid when you break these lines free, just a little bit. So I just threw down a piece of cardboard and some paper towels, and it was fine. So that's in. This is done. Everything's tight. The other point that I would make is to disconnect the battery, because you want to make sure that you're not shorting anything out once you go spraying brake cleaner on here. So disconnect the battery and then start working, and then go from there. So that's out. This is done, and we're gonna move to the next accumulator or air cell or reservoir or whatever Mercedes wants to call it, which I believe is in the driver's side front fender well. I'm gonna have to pull the wheel off, remove the fender liner, and then I believe it's in that side. So that's next up. All right, the pulsation dampener is in. Literally just screws right in to this valve block over here, or whatever you want to call it. So what I would recommend is taking a pair of pliers. Take a pair of pliers and run them right between these two lines here. That'll give you a little bit of leverage. This is a 15/16 wrench, and this will just unscrew and screw right back on. But you want to put a pair of pliers or an adjustable wrench between here, just so that when you're cranking on the wrench, it's not going to twist those lines up. Take a little bit of Penison hydraulic fluid and just rub it around the O-ring of the new pulsation dampener, just to lubricate it a little bit, screw it on, tighten it up, and you're basically done. So both of these are done, and the only thing left to do now are the two main accumulators. The one obviously is up front, and the driver's side front wheel well. Take the fender liners out, and that'll give you access to it. They come in two pieces. There's a front piece and then the rear section. It's just crazy how big Mercedes AMG brakes are from the factory. It's awesome. And then the rear accumulator, I do believe, is up underneath the exhaust. I haven't decided if I'm going to remove the mufflers and take them completely off. I would like to polish up the tips, but for the time being, I may just drop them down and see if I can gain access to the rear accumulator and install that. So that's those are the last two things to be done as far as the ABC system's concerned. I'll put some more fresh fluid in there. I do have an extra new filter, so I'll pop that in, and the ABC system should be pretty much completely done. So also, for the pulsation dampener, if you want the part number for this, 220-327-0215, and it's listed as an air reservoir from Mercedes. So that's the part number for the pulsation dampener for a W220. All right, I got both accumulators in. That's the old one. New one is in. Pretty straightforward, 3 bolts. Unscrew the hydraulic line, clean everything before you unscrew anything, and bolt the new one back in and tighten everything up. So front is done, the back is done. The back was a little more difficult. What I did was I took the bracket down for the exhaust, There's two 13mm bolts. If you can see, there's two 13mm bolts on a bracket up there. Take them off, take this bolt out, and you can loosen the clamp on the right side. And I left this exhaust hanger right here. I left this exhaust hanger on. I didn't remove this. You'll have enough wiggle room to get this accumulator out and the new one back in without having to take this entire right side exhaust off. And then the same thing with this rear accumulator. 3 bolts, clean everything up really well, make sure there's no dirt or anything around that line. 3 bolts, pull the old one out, put the new one back in, tighten the line up, and you should be good. You gotta have a little bit of patience. It's not something that's gonna happen in 10 minutes, but overall, not terrible. Like I said, the pulsation dampener and that other smaller reservoir off of the valve block is replaced. And the only thing left to do now is I'm gonna put a little bit of fresh Penison in it, fire it up. Trying to decide if I'm gonna go and do a rodeo with it, or if I'm just gonna pour some fresh fluid in and see if I can get all the air out of the system that way. There shouldn't be a ton of air. There wasn't a ton of fluid that leaked out. So I should be able to just top it off, press the ABC button a couple times to get it to raise and lower, and then it should be good. But overall, not a terrible job. As you can see, I did valve cover gaskets, painted the valve covers, coil packs, spark plugs, ignition wires, basically everything over the course of about 2.5, 3 days. So everything in the ABC suspension department is pretty much done. The only thing left to do is to do another ABC flush with a fresh filter, which I do have another filter. So trying to think if that's everything that I want to point out, but not too bad of a job, honestly. So let me just show the part number for the rear and the front larger accumulators. 220-327-0115. And both the front and the rear are identical. Same brackets, same accumulator, everything. So there you go. ABC job done. Good for another. I mean, this car has 120,000 miles on it, and it just started having issues, I believe, right before I purchased it. So those accumulators should be good for another, I would say, 80,000 miles. All right, that's gonna wrap up the video on the ABC on the W220. Not a terrible job. Once you get all of the plastic under trays and the fender liner and the exhaust off, the process of getting the accumulators and the pulsation dampener and that reservoir out and the new ones back in isn't that bad. It's more tedious than anything. Just kind of take your time. I think all you really need is a 17mm line wrench, 10mm socket for the bolts, and then a 13mm for all the exhaust bolts, and that's basically it. Jack and some jack stands, and just take your time. Go through everything really well, make sure everything's clean, and it should be a pretty straightforward process. Like I said, the 2 accumulators, the larger ones up underneath the rear exhaust and in the front driver's side fender well, the larger accumulators are identical part numbers. And then the air cell and the that other smaller reservoir is 2 separate part numbers. So I'm gonna put some more fresh fluid in the system, replace the filter, and probably do a rodeo because I've never done a rodeo on this car, and I want to see how that works. Get all the air out of the system, and then it should be good for another, I would say, 80, 100,000 miles. Everything's pretty much brand new, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't last that long. So That's going to do it for this video. I have another video coming that I'm doing valve cover gaskets, valve covers, and the ignition system. That's going to be in the next video coming out, but as of right now, the ABC system is done and we should be good to go for a while. So thanks for watching.